Welcome to this edition of Ethical Sustainable Investment News and Analysis to Profit By. I'm Ron Robbins, an ethical investing pioneer for over 40 years, quoted in the Wall Street Journal, MarketWatch, the Globe and Mail, and numerous other media, and founder of the highly respected global ethical sustainable investing information website, Investing for the Soul. And please listen to my disclaimer statement at the end of this podcast. Now enjoy this podcast. Hello, Ron Robbins here. Welcome to podcast episode 20, titled New ESG Rating Help for Investors and More, for December 6, 2019, presented by Investing for the Soul. Investingforthesoul.com is your site for vital global ethical and sustainable investing news, commentary, information, and resources. And Google any terms that are unfamiliar to you. Also, you can find a full transcript, live links to content, and often bonus material to these podcasts at the episode's podcast page located at investingforthesoul.com/podcasts. Please note that in my next podcast on December 20th, I'm going to make a really special offer to you, so look for that. Now to this podcast. To kick off, I want to talk to you about some big developments on the ESG company ratings front that can greatly help you in evaluating your investments. The first is from MSCI, which has developed and made available for free to all investors an online tool that shows their ESG ratings of 7,500 companies, 13,500 issuers including subsidiaries, and more than 650,000 equity and fixed income securities globally as of October 2019. According to MSCI's website. It's an impressive ESG company rating platform that you should really make use of. The second and equally impressive change is the revamped Morningstar Sustainability Rating for Funds. Morningstar's John Howe explains that the enhanced version differs from its predecessor in three ways. First, it is focused on material ESG risk rather than on a broader array of ESG issues, some of which may not be financially material to investors. Second, company ESG risks can now be compared across industries rather than only within industry peer groups. And third, the new rating is simple and transparent, no longer requiring a complicated calculation." End quote. By the way, material ESG risk simply means risk relevant to a company's financial performance. The Morningstar ESG fund ratings are developed from the more granular company ESG ratings provided by one of the real pioneers and a global leader in this space, and that is Sustainalytics. This new ESG Ratings Help should provide a boon to you and all investors. A frequent financial writer appearing in these podcasts recommending renewable energy stocks is Travis Hoyam, who publishes on the Motley Fool site. In a post titled 3 Renewable Energy Dividend Stocks to Buy Today, he describes why some renewable energy dividend-paying stocks have disappointed and then recommends a particular threesome. He writes that renewable energy stocks that pay a dividend have been hit or miss for investors in the last few years. Many renewable energy asset owners haven't performed as well as expected because they lacked a pipeline of projects that would keep the dividend growing year after year, leading them to sell their businesses to large investors. Ironically, the renewable energy asset owners that remain are in a better position than their predecessors because they have a smaller pool of competitors looking to buy projects and a project pipeline strategy that has worked for years. Today, the 3 renewable energy dividends that I think are still worth owning are from Next Era Energy Partners, Hainan Armstrong, and Brookfield Renewable Partners." End quote. Go to his article for his reasons for these 3, which of course is available at my investingforthesoul.com/podcast, and then scroll down to this episode. Continuing on the renewable energy theme, Larry Raymer, an Investor Place contributor, has some solar stock picks in his post titled 3 Solar Stocks to Buy for a New Day in Solar Energy. Regular listeners to these podcasts will be familiar with 2 of his picks, Jinko Solar and SunPower. His third choice is Dayco New Energy. About these stocks, he says that solar stocks have really taken it on the chin this year, but the huge declines are totally unjustified, creating a great buying opportunity for longer-term investors, and the recovery could be underway. Jinko Solar stock has added 7% year-to-date, SunPower stock has added 42%, and Dayco stock has added a whopping 60% after a dismal 2018. The catalyst for the retreat of solar stocks appears to have been a decision by the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission to eliminate a requirement for utilities to offer long-term fixed prices for qualifying facilities. End quote. However, when you read Mr. Raymer's article, he makes it clear that the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission's decision would only affect a small number of solar projects underway today. Hence, the market's new upward reassessment of many solar renewable energy stocks. And we have more on renewable stock recommendations from an unusual source with some equally unusual picks. It's by Ines Alec, writing on the oilprice.com site. Her article is 5 renewable stocks to watch in 2020. Miss Alec writes about her 5 stocks as follows. 1. Next Era Energy, Inc., as distinct from Next Era Energy Partners, is a Florida-based clean energy company and America's largest electric utility holding company by market cap. Next Era Energy is the world's largest producer of wind and solar energy. 2. Cosan S.A. is a Brazilian-based biofuels conglomerate with operations across South America and the UK. Cosan has interests in the bioethanol space, among other energy projects. The company generates 940 megawatts of sugarcane bioethanol through its Raison Energia arm, placing it among the leading producers of bioenergy. 3. Jinko Solar Holdings, second time recommended in this episode, is the largest photovoltaic module manufacturer in the world, with a 12.8% slice of the market. Headquartered in Shanghai, China, the company shipped a record 11.4 gigawatt of modules in 2018 and is on course to exceed that in the current year. 4. Vestas Wind Systems is the world's largest wind power company, responsible for more wind turbine installations than any other company, estimated at around 68,000 turbines in 80 countries. And 5. MKS Instruments Inc. While nuclear energy has been gradually falling out of favor, as evidenced by shrinking investments, that does not mean that investing in the sector has stopped being profitable. One company that has been defying the odds is MKS Instruments Inc. The company manufactures a variety of nuclear fuel processing, nuclear accelerator, and uranium conversion systems, and holds 600 nuclear-related patents." End quote. In discussing the future for nuclear power, Ms. Alik writes that nuclear power is presently classified as a sustainable energy source. However, it could become completely renewable if the uranium source changed from mined ore to seawater. Since the uranium mined from seawater is replenished continuously through a geologic process, nuclear energy would become as renewable as wind and solar. End quote. Incidentally, some leading environmentalists advocate nuclear energy. Anyhow, I'm on the sidelines of this debate, and I'll leave it to those much more knowledgeable than me to decide on that. Moving away from energy, I'd like to talk about one new and unique ESG ETF, and that is the State Street Global Advisors SPDR, that's SPDR, S&P 500 ESG screened UCITS, that's UCITS ETF. In an article titled "State Street Launches ETF that Screens S&P 500 for ESG Exclusions" by Jessica Beard, she says that the SPDR S&P 500 ESG screened UCITS ETF will track the newly launched S&P 500 ESG Exclusions 2 Index. The index methodology has been devised to exclude companies based on data from independent provider of ESG research and ratings, Sustainalytics. End of that quote, but quoting further, Ms. Beard adds that the exclusion-based approach eliminates exposure to controversial weapons, civilian firearms, tobacco, and thermal coal, as well as companies that do not comply with the principles of the UN Global Compact. End quote. It wasn't too long ago that most ethical and sustainable investors employed only negative screens, screening out industries and companies they disliked. Remember, ESG criteria today generally does not concern itself with the actual product or services a company produces, but usually only refers to the way a company functions. Hence, this new State Street ETF should help fulfill a clear need. Also, it is based on the S&P 500 ESG Screened Index, and that is a great plus. Well, these are my top news stories and tips for ethical and sustainable investors over the past 2 weeks. Again, to get all the links or to read the transcript of this podcast and sometimes get additional information too, please go to investingforthesoul.com/podcast and scroll down to this episode. And be sure to click the like and subscribe buttons in iTunes, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you download or listen to this podcast. And please click the share buttons to share this podcast with your friends and family. That way you can help promote not only this podcast, but ethical and sustainable investing globally and help create a better world for us all. Please don't hesitate to contact me if you have any questions about the content of this podcast or anything else related. Thank you for listening. Now, my next podcast is scheduled for December 20th, and as I mentioned, I'm going to make a really special offer to you in that episode, so be sure to listen. Bye for now. Learn how to create a simple portfolio reflecting your personal values by taking my 1-hour tutorial. Go to investingforthesoul.com/podcasts and click the link in the right-hand column for my DIY Ethical Sustainable Investing Pays tutorial. Now, I'll mention in the podcast if I have any direct interest or holdings in companies or securities I'm talking about. Furthermore, any news, opinions, analysis, or other information offered by myself, as well as references and information to or from other external sources in this podcast, is provided as general market information and should not be relied upon, and thus does not constitute investment advice. Investors should consult their own licensed investment professional before making investments. Also, I will not accept liability for any loss or damage, including without limitation any loss of profit which may arise directly or indirectly from use of or reliance on information in this podcast. Do contact me at ronr@investingforthesoul.com. Signing off, this is Ron Robbins.